If you want to know if a country is actively preparing to become a global superpower, do not look at their military parades. Look at their civil service exam prep.
Oh, absolutely. That is where the real strategy is.
Right. Because the documents that a government uses to train its next generation of bureaucrats, well, they tell you more about its grand strategy than any press release ever could. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one. We got a lot to get through today.
We really do. We have this fascinating stack of sources for you today, and it's all centered around a highly concentrated daily briefing document. It's dated June 15th, 2026.
Yeah, and this was specifically designed for Indian civil service aspirants. You know, the people studying for the notoriously difficult UPSC exams.
Right, the UPSC. And when you first look at this document, I mean, it feels totally chaotic.
It really does.
You see a headline about international trade and then another one about a mountain tunnel.
Yeah, right next to a blurb about private space exploration.
Exactly. And then a random note about zero balance bank accounts. It feels completely disconnected.
It reads like a randomized trivia list that you're just forced to memorize. But if you step back and look at the actual architecture of this specific document,
Yeah.
you realize it's not a random list at all. It is a holistic, incredibly sophisticated blueprint of a rising powers national strategy. And it's just, hiding in plain sight.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with how this strategy looks outward. So the first major section of our source material focuses on two diplomatic engagements that seem, well, completely at odds with each other.
Right. Very different focuses.
First, we have the United States Trade Representative, Jameson Greer. He's visiting India on June 23rd and 24th to discuss an interim trade agreement.
Which is a very specific type of negotiation.
Yeah, and mechanically speaking, interim trade agreement is basically a software patch. You're just pushing out a quick update to fix immediate tariff bugs and, keep the supply chain system running. It's like going steady before getting married, rather than waiting a decade to launch an entirely new, comprehensive free trade operating system.
That is a really functional way to look at it. Because, comprehensive free trade agreements take years, sometimes decades.
Oh, for sure.
Because you're haggling over every single sector of the economy all at once. An interim agreement allows two massive economies to just compartmentalize.
You just pick the easy stuff first.
Right. You isolate a few key sectors where you already have mutual interests, maybe specific agricultural tariffs or pharmaceutical exports.
Okay, so you lock in those supply chain reliabilities immediately.
Exactly. It builds institutional trust in real time.
I mean, I understand the pragmatism there, but then right next to this nuts and bolts negotiation with the U.S., the briefing highlights the India-France Innovation Roadmap 2030.
Which is a massive pivot.
It is. And this isn't about traditional trade at all. This roadmap specifically targets artificial intelligence, startups, and emerging technology cooperation.
Right.
I have to wonder if they're stretching themselves too thin here. I mean, was focusing so heavily on building a futuristic AI framework with France distract from the traditional trade policies being hammered out with the U.S.?
Wow.
It kind of feels like trying to write the code for tomorrow while you're still arguing over who pays for the servers today.
What's fascinating here is that these aren't competing bandwidth issues. They're parallel timelines.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you have to view economic diplomacy through the lens of chronological strategy. The U.S. talks are designed to secure the present reality.
Like paying the bills today.
Exactly. That interim agreement is about current trade volume and immediate macroeconomic stability. But the France roadmap operates on an entirely different vector.
The 2030 part of the name gives that away, I guess.
Right. It's positioning the country to dictate the terms of the next decade's digital economy.
So mechanically, what does an innovation roadmap actually do? Because honestly, it sounds like corporate jargon. Are they just sharing research?
It's much deeper than sharing research. A roadmap like this harmonizes regulatory frameworks.
Oh, so it's about the rules.
Yes. If Indian and French regulators agree on data privacy standards, intellectual property rights, and AI ethics right now.
Wait, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it means a startup in Bangalore can seamlessly integrate with a tech firm in Paris without friction. You are creating a unified digital jurisdiction.
Wow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
If you only focus on the traditional physical trade of today, you become obsolete tomorrow. Partnering with France on the 2030 roadmap ensures you're actively writing the rules for emerging tech before those technologies completely monopolize the global market.
So you use the U.S. agreement to pay the bills and keep the factory running today, while the French roadmap ensures you actually own the patents for the factory of tomorrow.
Precisely. You need both. You need the traditional trade agreements to build massive economic momentum, and you need the innovation roadmaps to steer where that momentum actually goes.
Which flows perfectly into the physical arena of the future. Because if AI is the software of the next century, space is the hardware.
Oh, absolutely.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The briefing highlights the India Space Congress 2026, which is kicking off in Delhi.
Yes, a major event.
And the detail that jumps out immediately is the guest list. There are representatives from 25 different countries participating.
That's a huge turnout.
Right. But the agenda isn't about state-sponsored moon landings. It's specifically focused on space technology, private sector participation, and international commercial cooperation.
The emphasis on the private sector is the critical mechanism to understand here.
Because it didn't used to be that way.
Not at all. For the first 50 years of space exploration, it was a strictly government-run, highly militarized affair. It was, all about national prestige.
The Cold War space race.
Exactly. But the economics of space have fundamentally changed. Reusable launch vehicles and massive satellite constellations require a level of rapid iteration and venture capital that government agencies simply aren't designed to handle.
Yeah, a government agency can't pivot fast enough, whereas a private company can blow up 3 rockets trying to figure out a new landing sequence and just write it off as R&D.
That's exactly the point. The private sector is now the vital engine for modern aerospace capability.
So the government steps back.
Well, governments still lay the regulatory groundwork, but they need private innovation to actually commercialize low Earth orbit. So when a country hosts a Congress with 25 nations focused on private sector participation, they aren't just showing off their own rockets.
What are they doing then?
They're pitching their jurisdiction.
Oh, so it's like a global tech incubator, but for orbit.
Yes.
They're essentially saying, come build your launch pad, register your satellite constellation, and do business in our regulatory environment.
It's a massive play for soft power and economic gravity. If 25 countries are participating, it signals that the international community recognizes Delhi as an indispensable hub for the future of aerospace collaboration.
But wait, what happens when those 25 countries sharing orbit suddenly have conflicting national interests on the ground?
Right.
Because how do you protect a billion-dollar collaborative space economy when your physical borders are contested? I mean, you can't build a state-of-the-art global tech incubator in a house that doesn't have a front door.
That is the harsh, unavoidable reality of geopolitics. Soft power and economic collaboration only exist within the boundaries protected by hard power.
And our source material takes a very sharp, intentional pivot right here.
It really does.
It drops all that limitless collaborative optimism of space and just slams right into the harsh realities of physical borders and national security.
Back down to earth.
Exactly. The UPSC update specifically instructs candidates to revise the latest SAMURAU book for 2026.
Right, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute.
Yeah, the ones who track global nuclear arsenals. The candidates have to study the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, India's specific nuclear doctrine, and MIRV technology.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Sankhya report impartially reflects a world where security doctrines are constantly evolving. It forces you to look at deterrence mechanisms.
Let's actually define that mechanism, because MIRV sounds like something out of a Cold War thriller.
It does.
It stands for Multiple Independently Targetable Reentry Vehicles. Mechanically, what does that actually change about deterrence?
Well, historically, one ballistic missile carried one warhead aimed at one target.
Simple enough.
Right, and an anti-missile defense system could theoretically track and intercept it. But MIRV technology fundamentally alters that math.
How so?
A single missile goes up into the atmosphere, but then it releases multiple warheads along with decoys, all traveling at hypersonic speeds toward completely different targets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's designed to completely overwhelm standard defense shields. It is an advanced, highly aggressive form of strategic deterrence.
I understand how missiles function as deterrence, but I want to push back a bit here.
Sure.
How do we reconcile the image of a nation hosting a cooperative 25-country space congress with the reality of developing MIRV nuclear tech? And then, right next to that in the briefing is the Zohila Tunnel, highlighted as a major strategic infrastructure project.
Right.
I don't see how boring a massive hole through a mountain in Ladakh acts as a global deterrent. I mean, unless we're hiding the MIRVs inside the tunnel.
No, it's a concept known as logistical
It's
deterrence.
logistical deterrence.
Yeah, the geography of Ladakh is famously unforgiving. Historically, extreme winter weather would completely cut off the region from the rest of the country for months at a time.
Which is a huge problem.
In geopolitical terms, that is a massive geographic vulnerability. A border that cannot be reinforced or supplied during the winter is a border that invites opportunism from adversaries.
So the tunnel isn't just about reducing traffic.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The Zogila Tunnel fundamentally alters the operational reality on the ground by establishing year-round connectivity. It erases that seasonal vulnerability.
Okay, I see.
But to answer your broader point about how this all fits with the Space Congress and the French AI roadmap's capital is inherently cowardly.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Foreign direct investment, venture capital for space startups, multinational tech partnerships, they all flee at the first sign of physical instability.
Oh, right. Nobody wants to invest in a war zone.
Exactly. You cannot securely pursue artificial intelligence or open your space sector to a 25-nation global market if your nation is perceived as physically or strategically vulnerable.
So the hard power enables the soft power.
The MIRV technology provides the macro-level strategic deterrence, while the Zohila Tunnel provides the micro-level tactical border security.
I have to push back on that again, though.
Go ahead.
Doesn't heavily publicizing your nuclear doctrines, stockpiling MIRVs, and drilling military-grade tunnels through mountains scare off the exact same foreign investors and trade reps you're trying to attract?
You would think so.
It seems counterintuitive to say, welcome to our peaceful space incubator. Please ignore the hypersonic warheads.
It is the paradox of statecraft. You might think heavy militarization scares off investors, but institutional capital actually demands absolute sovereignty.
Interesting.
A French AI firm or a U.S. trade delegation needs to know that the geopolitical risks of doing business in your country are permanently mitigated. They don't invest in regions where the borders might shift in the winter. The hard power is the firewall that allows the soft power software to run safely.
Okay, that clarifies the tension. We have the software being developed with France, we have the hardware expanding into space, and we have the firewall built with MIRVs and tunnels.
Exactly.
But what is the underlying operating system running all of this? This brings us to the final section of the briefing, which traces all these massive geopolitical moves back to the bedrock of the entire system.
The individual citizen.
Yes, the citizen. The document highlights the Pradhan Mantri Yandan Yojana. Launched in 2014, its core objective is financial inclusion, specifically through zero-balance bank accounts.
Which is a massively significant domestic policy that has direct macroeconomic implications.
Totally. And to understand why it matters, we have to look at why these populations were excluded in the first place. Traditional banks historically required minimum balances and extensive KYC, know your customer documentation.
Right, lots of paperwork.
If you lived in a rural area, worked in the informal cash economy, and didn't have a paper trail of wealth, you were locked out. A zero-balance account removes that barrier to entry. It's like giving every single person a ticket to enter the economic stadium instead of making them watch from the parking lot.
That's a great way to put it.
But how does giving someone a zero-balance account actually strengthen the state's grand strategy?
It domesticates and formalizes the economy. When you suddenly integrate hundreds of millions of previously unbanked people into the formal financial system, you achieve a few things.
Like what?
Well, first, you allow for direct benefit transfers from the government, eliminating the corruption of middlemen. Second, you begin to formalize the massive informal economy, which eventually broadens the tax base.
Makes sense.
But strategically, deep financial inclusion creates a robust domestic market. It insulates the national economy against the exact kinds of international trade shocks we were talking about earlier with the U.S. interim agreements.
So a resilient domestic market means you negotiate from a position of strength abroad.
Exactly.
Which makes perfect sense. And right next to that financial foundation is the legal foundation, Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, the right to constitutional remedies.
Right.
The briefing specifically notes that B.R. Ambedkar called Article 32 the heart and soul of the Constitution.
This raises an important question regarding the hierarchy of rights. Why focus on Article 32 specifically?
Because it's like the ultimate IT support hotline for your civil rights.
I like that analogy.
It isn't just a passive list of freedoms. It is the actionable mechanism you use to petition the Supreme Court when your other fundamental rights are violated. If the Yandan Yojana brings you into the economic system, Article 32 ensures you aren't crushed by the legal system.
The juxtaposition in this briefing is what makes it a masterclass.
It really is.
You have a document that covers orbiting satellite constellations, artificial intelligence, and nuclear deterrence. And it ends with zero balance bank accounts and a constitutional remedy. Because true national power requires all of these components to function in tandem.
You can't have a modern superpower if the citizens are alienated. It would just be a high-tech fortress filled with disenfranchised people.
Exactly. If a government only builds up its external hard power and its high-tech industry, but fails to integrate its population financially or protect them legally, the entire structure is hollow. It's prone to collapse. Ambedkar, calling Article 32 the heart and soul, was an acknowledgement that a constitution is only as strong as a citizen's ability to actually enforce it. The ultimate goal of the U.S. trade agreements, the French innovation roadmaps, and the border infrastructure is to secure a sovereign space where the citizen can thrive.
So to recap this massive journey for you today, we started by looking at a daily civil service update that looked like, well, disconnected puzzle pieces. But by unpacking the mechanisms behind the headlines, we saw the architecture.
Very deliberate architecture.
We saw how a software patch interim trade agreement with the U.S. stabilizes the present, while an AI innovation roadmap with France builds the digital jurisdiction of tomorrow.
And we saw how hosting a 25-country space congress shifts the global aerospace engine from state-run prestige to private sector commercialization.
Exactly. And then we explored how all of that collaborative optimism must be physically secured by the harsh realities of hard power. From the macro-level deterrence of MIRV technologies that overwhelm defense systems to the logistical deterrence of the Zohila Tunnel, erasing seasonal geographic vulnerabilities.
Which all acts as the firewall.
Right. And finally, we saw how none of those massive geopolitical moves matter without the bedrock of the citizen. Deep financial inclusion insulates the domestic economy, and the actionable legal safeguard of Article 32 ensures the system remains accountable.
It's a complete system.
Checking the daily news doesn't have to be an overwhelming experience when you understand the mechanics of how these policies actively reinforce one another.
However, architecture must constantly be tested against the elements, which leaves us with a critical, unresolved tension to consider.
What's that?
Well, as the briefing highlights, B.R. Ambedkar called Article 32 the heart and soul that protects individual rights. How will those foundational legal remedies adapt as the nation aggressively pursues AI integration and private space expansion?
Oh, that's a tough one.
As the country races toward the innovation roadmap of 2030, will a constitution designed in the 20th century be enough to protect the citizens of a high-tech future? Will it be agile enough for a highly automated, algorithm-driven world?
That is the ultimate test of the system, isn't it? A brilliant question to leave you with today as you go out and read the headlines for yourself. Remember to look for the mechanisms behind the facts, keep challenging the obvious narrative, and most importantly, keep questioning the information around you. We will catch you on the next deep dive.